my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and these are the hottest Golden Age comics for the week. It is a very special week this week. It is the week where Heritage Auctions had their signature auction sale. This was a massive sale. They bring in basically all their biggest books. So you get typically, in a big auction, you'll see one or two big books. Well, this is like a lot of big books and multiple copies of some of these major grails. Major grails. So very cool auction. And I'm going to show you the top 10 by price sales that happened at the auction. Now, I kept it per, like there was actually multiple sales for certain books. So I kept it where it's only one book per item per the top 10. So it's a really great list. Let's get right into it. The first book on the list is Detective Comics number 66. This is from DC Comics 1942. It is the Jerry Robinson cover, and it is the very first appearance and origin of Two-Face, major rogues gallery villain for Batman. And it's also the third appearance of the Boy Commandos. And in it, you see Robin kind of doing the tightrope walk on the cover, actually. And that kind of alludes to his circus origins. So you get a bit of that as well. So this was actually a really interesting sale because it was a 9.2 that sold. And it was a white pager. And it is the highest graded copy for this book. It sold for $72,000. Now, that is actually very interesting because this book had never sold before in this grade. So really, this is the book that defines how all the other grades are. Generally, that's what happens when you have like these best of or the highest graded copies selling. It kind of helps you figure out what should the other books that are lower grades sell for. And what generally happens is the next lowest grade or the next grade would sell for about half, and then more maybe a third, depending on how much of a difference there is in grade, or how high that top grade is. Like if it's a 9.8 versus 9.6, you'll see usually 2 to 3 times. But in this case, the next highest grade that has had a recent sale was an 8.5. So there was no sales in the 9.2. So we don't know what, how this book performed because this is the only sale. But the 8.5 sold back in November of 2022 for $31,200. So this is about, a little bit more than double what the 8.5 had sold for. So pretty good sale for this book. There are 121 of these on the census, and 92 are Universal Blue Labels. Number 9 on the list is Wonder Woman number 2. This is actually a really interesting one because it's a DC Comics 1942, and this is a special one. This is a H.G. Peter cover, but this was a promotional comic that National Comics, so it's All American Comics Inc. Was the one that actually created Wonder Woman, which is different than DC Comics. And what happened was DC Comics and All American Comics united at a later date. They kind of merged. But this was Wonder Woman number 2, where they basically wanted to promote the comic. And this is what CGC wrote about Heritage wrote about the comic. Wonder Woman number 2, solicitation copy with promotional letter. DC 1942. Before this mind-bending, single highest graded solicitation copy of issue number 2 showed up at our offices, we had never seen a copy of the Amazing Amazon's second solo issue with a grade above 9.0. This is quite possibly the only existing example of this. And so what happened was they sent this book to Harper's Magazine, and they were trying to basically promote the greatness of Wonder Woman. They actually had this sort of top 10 list of characters that they mentioned in the Wonder Woman comics, where there were like female people of history, female figures of history like Joan of Arc, Queen Elizabeth, Mary Curie, all those, and they kind of had a list, and they were showing how many people commented about the list, and they were trying to use this to say, oh, look, our book is really educational, it's really great, you should talk about it in your Harper's Magazine. So it was very interesting. What they did was they would send this letter signed by the editor, and they would send this, issue number 2 of Wonder Woman with it, and hopes that maybe they would get some positive coverage in these magazines. So just a really cool piece of history, actually. Heritage actually thought that this possibly could be the first type of promotional comic like this, or a solicitation kind of comic like this. So major piece of history. Now, this was a 9.6 white pager that sold, and this is the highest grade copy for this book again, and it sold for 84,000. That's it, 84,000. And the last sale for this book was back in not this book, but a book of this grade was set back in 2020 for $27,633. So this is like up huge from that prior record. Just a really massive sale for this book. I think because of that extra history, this one did sell for more. It has that extra promotional letter with provenance associated with it. It gives it a little bit more value. Definitely a very cool book. So there's 98 of these on the census, and 77 of them are Universal Blue Labels. The next one on the list is number 8 on the list is Detective Comics number 31. This is from DC Comics 1939. It's a Bob Kane cover. It's a classic cover. It's one that's been homaged by Neil Adams, and I think they even recently did an homage to it. It's just one of those great classic Batman covers, probably considered to be the best Batman cover. It's also got a few cool first appearances in it. It's got the first appearance of the Monk, and it's also got the first appearance of Judy Madison, who actually is kind of the first love interest for Batman, which is extra cool. It also has the first appearance of the Bat Plane and the Batarang, which is the boomerang, Batarang, that he throws around and fights crime with. So those make their first appearance in this book. So pretty cool. This was a 2.5 that sold, and it sold for $90,000. The previous record for this grade was set back in September of 2021 for 87,000. So it's up slightly from that previous record, but actually this is not a good sale. This was a weak sale for this book because there was a 2.0 that sold in 2022, like in June of 2022 for 93,000. So you would have expected this one to maybe sell for around like 100,000. So a little bit under what you would have expected this one to sell for, but still record, still a pretty good sale. But a major classic book. There was 104 of these on the census, and 61 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 7 on the list is Wonder Woman number 1. This is from DC Comics 1942. It's a H.G. Peter cover. It is the first appearance of Ares. It's the first Wonder Woman titled comic, which makes it extra cool for Wonder Woman collectors. It also retells her origin stories, and it's the one right behind me, right there. It's a great book, just a classic Wonder Woman book, with her, riding the horse into the no man's land and jumping, going into the German trenches. This was a 8.0 CBA copy. Now, CBA means that it presents slightly better than what the grade would suggest. So it's like 8.0 plus. I don't know how to say that, but and it sold for $108,000. Now, the previous record for this book was set back in July of 2020, and it sold for $120,000. So it's down about 10% from its prior record. A little bit of a disappointing sale. There's 201 of these on the census, and 131 are Universal Blue Labels. Number 6 on the list is Batman #1. This is from DC Comics 1940. It's a Bob Kane and Jerry Robinson cover. It is the first appearance of the Joker, and it's the first appearance of the Cat, later called Catwoman. So just a major book for Batman. Actually, if you look behind me, the book right there, which is Detective Comics 40, actually features a panel, is a cover swipe of a panel from Batman #1, where it shows the very first Joker. So very cool book. The Joker is one of the major characters for Batman. Possibly the most important villain for Batman. And Batman, this is his first titled comic, so very major book for Batman. Just a classic book. This was a 2.5 that sold, and it sold for $156,000. Now, there was also a 1.5 green label that sold, and it sold for $54,000. So there was 2 sales of Batman 1s in this auction. So as I said, multiple copies of major books. Now, this is the highest sale for a 2.5 because it's the only sale for a 2.5. There's just no record of previous 2.5s selling. Now, there was a 2.0 that sold back in November of 2021 for $240,000. So this is well below what a 2.5 had sold for. And actually, this book has been on a sort of a downward spiral for a while, because in January of 2024, so this year, a 2.0 had sold for $102,000. So it's in line with what that other sale, that week sale that happened in January. So kind of in line with that, but just a very weak sale for this book. Batman 1 has kind of a weird, volatile trend line. If you look at it, it's like up and down. It's all over the place. Sometimes it has like these massive sales, sometimes not so much. This was a weak sale based on the previous sales and based on the 2.0 selling for much higher. There's 306 of these on the census, and 146 are Universal Blue Labels. Number 5 on the list is Sensation Comics #1. This is from DC Comics 1942. It's H.G. Peter cover and art. It's the Wonder Woman's second appearance, and it's also her first cover appearance. And it's her first solo titled book, not titled with Wonder Woman, but Sensation Comics. So it's her first solo book. Now, it's also the first appearance of Wildcat, Mr. Terrific, and the Gay Ghost. So if you like those characters, well, this is where they appear. This was the highest graded copy of this book on the census. It was a 9.6 that sold for $420,000. Now, the previous record for this book was set back in August of 2017 for $399,100. So it's up a bit from that previous record, but not really that much. I would have expected it to sell for a lot more, especially it's been 7 years. I was kind of hoping that Sensation One would become another one of these $1 million comics, but still not in that range. Not even close to that range, because this is the highest graded copy and it didn't even get to $500,000. I would have kind of expected it to go for around $500,000 to $600,000. So this is well below what you would have expected for this book, but still a record, but not as strong as I would have expected. There's 114 of these on the census, and 76 are Universal Blue Labels. Number 4 on the list is Superman #1. This is DC Comics, 1939. It's a Joe Shuster cover, and it's the origin of Superman as well, retold. Or, reprinted, I should say. This is the first self-titled superhero comic in existence. This is the book that really set the trend of having a title devoted to a single character. It was also massively printed. When they printed this book, they actually had multiple printings. I think 3 printings of it altogether. It was one of those ones where I think there was like 1 million copies they printed, but not many survived. It's actually one of those few books that has a really low top of census book. I think it's like a 7.0 or like 7.0, somewhere around that range, where that's the top of the census. This was a Superman #1 5.0 that sold, and it sold for $500,000, so $500,000. There was also 2 other sales in this same auction for Superman 1s, and they had a 1.0 CVA, slightly, so 1.0 plus, that sold for $138,000, and there was a 7.0 restored copy that sold for $66,000. So those were the 3 copies that sold. We're gonna just look at the 5.0 that sold, which was $500,000, and it is way down, way down. The last sale for this book was in January of 2023 for $675,000. So it's down $175,000 from that last sale. Now, that last sale was actually down from the prior record. The highest sale for this book was set back in May of 2022 for $720,000. So it's down like about 50% from its previous heights. So just continually dropping. This book has not performed well. I think the Golden sale and then the Heritage Auction sale for a high grade Superman 1 really kind of turned a lot of collectors off this book. And it hasn't been performing well ever since. And this is a very weak sale. I mean, it sounds great when you say $500,000 sale, but when you had a book that was kind of hovering closer to the $1 million mark, that is not a good price. Or it didn't really get the price that they would have expected. There's 180 of these on the census, and 76 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 3 on the list is Detective Comics number 27. This is from DC Comics 1939. It's a Bob Kane cover. It's the first appearance of Batman, so major book. Bruce Wayne, and it's also the first appearance of Commissioner Gordon. Just a cool book for Batman collectors, because it is the biggest book other than Action 1. This is the next biggest book, I would say. And it was a 3.0 that sold, and it sold for $600,000, which is a new record for this book. However, let's get into the numbers a little bit. The previous record for this book was set back in April of 2012. So that's quite a ways ago. And it sold for $201,000. However, there was a recent sale of a 4.5 that sold for $1.14 million. So $1,140,000, sorry. And that was in January of 2022. So based on that 4.5 that sold for 1.1 million, you would have expected this book to sell for around 700 to 800,000. So this is actually down based on that other sale. Interesting one. Still a great book to have, but not as strong as you would have expected. I'm not sure why this didn't sell for more, but it was not a very strong sale. There are 78 of these on the census, and 37 are Universal Blue Labels. Number 2 on the list is Captain America #1. This is from Timely, 1941. It's the only Marvel book that's on the list. And this is a Joe Simon and Jack Kirby cover. It's a classic cover. You got Captain America punching Hitler. It's kind of a great cover for that. It's also the first appearance of Captain America and his origin story, and Bucky. It is also the first appearance of the Red Skull. So just a major book for Marvel. And at the time, during the Golden Age, Captain America was one of the 3 big characters for Marvel. You had Captain Marvel, Submariner, and the Human Torch. Those were the 3 big ones. So this was their big book. This was a 9.2 that sold, and it sold for $750,000. There was also a 3.0 that sold, and it sold for $156,000. So it's amazing when you have multiple books of this caliber on a list. This is actually the second highest grade for this for Captain America #1. The previous record for this book was set back in June of 2023 for $810,000. So this one is actually down as well, about $60,000 from its prior record. Not such a great sale for this book. There's 194 of these on the census, and 97 of them are Universal Blue Labels. #1 on the list is Action Comics #1. This is from DC Comics 1938. It is a Joe Shuster cover, and art. It's also the origin and first appearance of Superman, and it's the first appearance of Lois Lane and Zatara, who is the father of Zatanna. So a bunch of great characters in this book. This is an interesting one because it is probably it is definitely the most important comic to comics. Action Comics 1 is the book that really started the golden age of comics. And there's no better than this book. So, and this is an interesting one because it was an 8.5 that sold. And it's the Kansas City Pedigree copy. And it sold for $6 million. There was also a restored 8.0 that sold for $576. So this is not actually the highest graded copy of Action Comics 1. It is the second highest graded. But still, you don't see those super high grade ones selling very often. They usually are in somebody's vault somewhere, and they don't sell very often. So this is a pretty major book. There's actually 4 copies in those higher grades. There's 2 at the 9.0, and there's 2 in the 8.5 grade. So pretty few of these books. Now, this one is interesting because this is a record. This is actually the most expensive ever a comic has ever been purchased at. The prior record, I think, was $5 million. Now this is a $6 million sale. It just blows everything else out of the water. So it is the new record for how much a comic can be worth. Now, the previous record for this grade of comic in Action 1 was $2,052,000, set back in June of 2018. So this book hasn't, you just don't see it that often, every 6 years. So that's pretty far. Now, there was a previous record for 9.0 set back in 2014. So that gives you a sense of how rare or how infrequent these books come to market, and that sold for 3.2 million. So this sold for double the higher graded copy did 10 years ago. Well, it's 10 years, a lot can happen. So this was just a massive sale for this book. Definitely one that was widely reported on in like Instagram and on YouTube, because this is like the book. This is now, it sort of sets that standard for what the most expensive comic can be, which is Action Comics 1. So really interesting one. There's only 78 Action Comics 1 on the census, and 44 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Just a really cool sale. Great way to end it. I hope you enjoyed this list. What did you think? Why do you think some of the books didn't perform as well? Were people just saving all their money up for that Action 1, or what was going on? So I'd like to hear your opinion about this sale in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.